Welcome to How We Heard It, the podcast about music, pop culture, movies, and more, with your hosts Wayne Bledsoe and Chuck Campbell.
Welcome to How We Heard It. This is Chuck Campbell with
Wayne Bledsoe.
Wayne Bledsoe. Are we talking about music videos today?
You came in with so much enthusiasm. I don't know what to do about it.
Energy. Come on, step it up, man. We want people to listen to this and feel energized.
I am totally prepared to talk about music videos and their importance and all their changes and all the stuff that you know, the old stuff that you don't want to talk about.
Yeah,
so you better kick it off.
Yeah, I'll take a break and have some popcorn or something when you're doing that. Well, there's one thing I want to talk about first, and that's, in my research, we're talking about music videos and their importance to the music industry and their importance to culture overall. And I found something, and let me get this out here, my notes, but I discovered that there's an interesting overlay of the generations and the different movements in music video, and each generation sort of had a unique circumstance for music videos. And it was interesting, but first I need to establish the premise that we've already talked about several times, and that is that people are most open to music and new experiences, new entertainment experiences and new music from like the mid-teens or whatever into their 20s, 25, maybe even 30. And it's the years when you've got your most freedom, when you're establishing yourself as an adult. And it kind of ends when you've graduated school and you've started your career and maybe you've married and maybe you've had kids and you settle down. And just naturally speaking, you're not going to be open to, all kinds of other things at that point. You're looking for your routine. And that's just the way it is. That's a generality. I know everybody, as soon as they hear that, like, no, And I know you were I think you were studying music when you were what, 3 or 4?
Something like that.
Yeah,
like that.
So
you were songs memorized.
You were a very precocious child, and most of us were just catching lightning bugs and playing tag or whatever. And you could lecture all of us on what we needed to know. But so given that in mind, obviously MTV is a big force in music videos. There were music videos before MTV, but the boomers, they were pretty much cycled out of that prime age to be open to new things. I think the younger boomers were open to MTV when it debuted, but most of them, it was like 70s rock or whatever for them.
Right.
And they didn't really, they were aware of it. They may have watched it some, but they didn't absorb it because they were kind of settled, they were established. And I think the Gen X totally overlapped with the success of MTV. MTV debuted on August 1st, 1981.
Right.
And that was when the oldest Gen X's were maybe 20 years old, something like that. And so they were still at the early part of their prime years. And then the youngest ones were like just born. So, and MTV had like 20 good years in it when it was a music video force. So all of Gen X was caught up in MTV because they were all at the right age to be into it. Oh, I think Wayne's allergic to what I'm saying, and he's going to have one of those silent sneezes. I wish we had video right now.
My eyeballs came out just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. It looked like
sneeze.
a cartoon, Anyway.
Be a good video.
Yeah. If only that had been a video and we could have put music to it. But this is what I found more interesting. I already knew that baby boomers weren't that into MTV. I always knew that Gen X. Oh, here he goes again.
I can't sneeze and laugh. I'm trying
I can't sit here and talk and watch this.
I'm going to sneeze into John's microphones here.
I'm talking about something. You
Sneeze guard.
Okay, so, but what I found was interesting was that millennials, their prime years, the oldest millennials maybe got the tail end of MTV. And this was more like they were young, and MTV, the last hurrah for MTV was more stuff like as far as like being a real force in music videos. Right. It was Britney Spears and the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and then Spice Girls. And of course, millennials, the oldest millennials were young enough then to, be into that. But then like the middle millennials and the younger millennials, they missed it because MTV in 2005, they had dialed back all of their music videos to just a couple hour blocks per day. And by 2010, they just stopped playing music videos completely. And that's when you had millennials like in the prime of their lives. So they weren't showing it. And not only that, what followed MTV, what brought music videos back was basically YouTube and Vimeo and all these other things. But YouTube didn't really get started till 2005, and it wasn't really well stocked with music videos yet. And of course, everyone had to have the technology to keep up with YouTube, so you weren't able to watch the videos and everything. But by the time the Gen Z people were up in that prime age, everything was all set. They could watch anything they wanted to watch whenever they wanted to watch it. So the bottom line is, and this explains why I always wondered why when we were working, and we worked with a lot of millennials, there were a bunch of them that just didn't seem to have much reference point for music videos. And they just said, I didn't watch many videos. And I thought, okay. And because I knew that videos still existed, and I knew that they were existing again. But for them, during those key years, it wasn't a big deal, so they weren't watching them. And I would show them videos, and they would think, like the old MTV videos, and they would think they were weird, and like, that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, well, they're music videos. They're not supposed to be logical. They're never logical, But the cool thing about it is that, Gen X or Gen Z caught up with it again. So it's almost like it skipped a generation, and there's actually a common thread between millennials and baby boomers. So who knew that existed?
That's amazing. If we can find anything.
Yeah, and that was that music videos weren't important to them.
Right.
But then for Gen X and to some degree Gen Z, music videos were more important.
Well, and we talked about this earlier. I mean, when MTV first came out, we just turned on the television and left it on that channel.
Yeah.
And did whatever. It was just our background, visual and sound.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I had roommates in college, and we had cable, and we had MTV, and that it was our default channel. We just turned it on MTV, turned it on. No one could be in the living room, and it would still just be playing.
Yep.
Almost like, if you wanted to stop and watch videos, here they are. Or if you were somewhere else in the condo and you heard it, you could run down and sit and watch the one you wanted to see. Or if you knew it was some boring video you didn't care about, you wouldn't have to go look at it. But it was our radio.
Yeah,
we didn't listen to the radio.
And it became such a big deal that, like, when Thriller came out,
yeah,
it was like a big deal. They announced, we're going to show this at 9 o'clock tomorrow night. And people would gather around the television and watch a premiere of a big. I mean, didn't happen that many times, but with that one, it was a big deal.
The MTV, well, that was the biggest deal I think in MTV, at least in the '80s, was Thriller.
How long was that video too? It was like 15 minutes long.
Something like that.
Yeah, they started doing that. It got more imaginative with videos, and you would have Michael Jackson. You would have others too that would have longer, Madonna and all that, but.
But that was the first one that it was like a movie premiere.
That was. And I
was.
saw the debut, here I go with personal experiences. I saw a debut of a Michael Jackson video in Paris one time, and it was just so cool because it was on the street and everybody had gathered, and it was in front of a Virgin in Paris, and they had the big TVs out and everything, and I think it was... I can't remember if it was Black and White or if it was that song he did with Janet Jackson, Scream.
Right.
But everybody just stood on the street in Paris and watched this video.
Wow.
And it was like so cool.
It's like watching Man walk on the moon.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Well, he was moonwalking.
Yeah, he was. Well, yeah, and he could moonwalk even better than Neil Armstrong. So, but anyway, so I thought that's a good starting point for us, so that people listening out there might understand why they may have missed something, or why something seemed more important to them than it did to other people. It just depended on where the music video craze was when you were 20. Was it a big deal, or a small deal, or no deal at all? And one thing that. The British were ahead of Americans when it came to MTV, and they had been like all of them, all the big ones. We were talking about the Beatles, and of course David Bowie, my friend David Bowie, and Elton John and Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yep.
They were all out before MTV hit.
And
go ahead.
Like Bohemian Rhapsody, that's one of the things I remember that being on the Midnight Special.
Yeah,
right.
me too.
Because they were like, they'd have the live acts and everything, but every once in a while they would throw in a video.
Right.
And that video premiered there, and everybody's just like, wow, this is crazy.
Right. Well, I told you I don't remember that from the video. I'm not even sure. This is the thing is that MTV didn't play a lot of the older videos, even the ones that were just a few years older than MTV debuting. They just kind of like, we're going to start here, and what we do from here on is going to be all new. So everything, all these bands from the 70s, the British bands or whatever that had been pioneering the way with videos, they just got left out in the cold. And I didn't realize a lot of these videos even existed until I joined the Gen Z people, and they were looking at these things on YouTube, because when YouTube came about, all the videos got loaded on. So you got the ones from MTV and before. So you could see Strawberry Fields Forever, from the 60s or whatever. And I'd be like, and I'm not sure that I knew this. I'm not sure that I knew Bohemian Rhapsody video existed before YouTube.
Oh, wow.
So, that's how out of the loop. And that was the problem with videos in America, especially, is in Midnight Special, I told you that was the first music video I saw, and it was ABBA.
Yeah,
it was
I remember
ABBA's
that
Take
one.
a Chance on Me. And what struck me about it is it was so futuristic, because most music videos or whatever that were happening back then, they were performance videos, just barely upgraded from just like them pretending to sing or actually singing live. And they were like no instruments. They were making no pretense about it. And they just lip synced, and they were in a big white studio, and all that stuff. And it just thought, wow, this is like a whole different spin on music.
And they also had fast cuts in that one, which was something that all the future music videos picked up on, nearly all of them.
Yep. And I mentioned this, ABBA was there were winners and losers when MTV came around. And ABBA, who had been pioneer, they had a lot of other videos that I didn't realize. But they broke up like 3 months after MTV started airing. So, and I mean, I understand, it was two couples, and they were all divorced from each other, and it wasn't working out for them. So they missed the wave, and they kind of got left out. And there were other bands. I think maybe we talk about the dramatic change in music from before and after MTV, because it didn't just affect the careers of people. It didn't just mean, okay, everybody's got to do videos now. Everybody's got to do videos for any song, because that's so key to marketing these songs now. Even, just getting played on radio wasn't enough anymore.
Well, there was a lot of things going on at that time, too. I mean, you had the beginnings. Right about the time MTV premiered, you had college rock that was starting up, and you actually started having the chart for college rock.
Right.
So there was a place that would pick up on the videos that were shown on MTV when corporate radio wouldn't. And corporate radio hated MTV.
Right.
Because they thought they
didn't control it.
Right. They thought that they had it all sewn up. It was all going to these big conglomerates who were deciding what was being played in every city was the same thing. And it was all the bands that they liked, and it was all the big
It was all the established bands.
Exactly.
And that all got blown up.
And it was album-oriented then, too.
Yep. And if you look at the artists who were successful, in the 70s, you still had a big clunk of, like, classic rock, rock and roll. And you had disco was churning, kind of winding down. And with MTV, it was like all that got blown up. And it was synth pop and goth and new wave and neo punk, and
the cool thing is too, along with that, is they were playing whatever was available that was new,
and that's why there were so many British acts, because the British acts, Europeans in general, they were doing music videos to a more sophisticated degree than Americans were. You can find some old American videos from them, and they had like Top of the Pops in Britain, and I think they had shows like that in Germany and whatnot.
Yep.
So they were, and ABBA from Sweden, they were like, we're just going to do cool little art films for our songs,
Well, and I think also that MTV legitimized post-punk, new wave stuff in the eyes of, because prior to that, no new wave bands or anything were getting radio play or anything.
They could get nothing. And this is John Baker, by the way.
Yes.
Our engineer.
But I think it really did bring new wave and post-punk influenced music into the mainstream.
Right.
And it was delivering it to Gen X, who was at the perfect age to be receiving that. Mm-hmm. So they were ready for it. And MTV's like, here you go. It's a whole new way to hear music with videos. So, and they were, the videos were pretty decidedly vibrant. It helped to be pretty, it helped to be younger. It helped to have colorful costumes and everything. It helped to be weird. It helped to dance or have some dancers on hand. And this just left a lot of the 70s bands, kind of twisting in the wind because, and no fault of theirs, but, they were used to just going out on stage and standing at their mics, and playing, and maybe the dancer, the lead singer might do a funky dance or something. But this is like, oh, no, you got to have a story, you got to click it along. And, it's good for directors. It was good for artists who had more than just musical skills. So if you could be an actor, if you could be pretty, if you could, dance or something like that, that helped. Or they would bring in people to do that in your video.
Yeah, well, Frank Zappa has a great song called "Be in My Video," which basically lines out all the cliches that were in all sorts of the videos at the time.
Right.
But, part of it, again, is the record companies didn't know. They weren't prepared for this.
No.
So they didn't have video budgets.
No.
So, the bands were just doing things ad hoc as best as they could. And some of those were way cooler than what came later.
Yeah.
Right.
And you had, Canadian bands that would do a video.
Canadian bands, British bands.
And they would get on MTV and never be able to get on the radio.
Right.
But they got followings. I remember, Doug and the Slugs were kind of a goofy, funny band out of Canada.
Yeah.
And they released 2 or 3 videos, and they were funny, and they were, I went out and bought the album because they were fun.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you had an association with the song besides just hearing it on the radio and trying to make out the lyrics.
And then
you had a visual association.
And you had Cabaret Voltaire. You had The Residents. That's the first time I saw The Residents. I think was actually on
the
Night
Eyeball
Flight.
Band.
And their videos were just as crazy as everything else they do.
But even like the big successes of the time, they were pretty crazy. I mean, even so, crazy helped. I think it helped. I mentioned before, like Cyndi Lauper. I think she probably would have been a hit anyway.
Right.
But to see her, like, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, you hear that song. It might be a novelty song back in the radio day. But when you see her and you see these other women and they're out cavorting around and everything, you remember that video. And it's like, I think a lot of songs that might have been modest hits became bigger hits. And there were some groups that made the transition really well, and there were some that couldn't make the transition at all.
And some who hit right at the right time, like the Talking Heads.
Right.
Which were, they'd been out for a few years, but man, did they ever embrace it once they got going with MTV.
Right. And the Cars and Jay Giles Band. And there were a lot of... go ahead.
I was just about to say, you mentioned the Jay Giles Band. To me, that's like one of the greatest success stories of MTV is they were a really good, just straight-out rock and roll band. Mm-hmm. And then they released Centerfold and have this great video to go with it. And it's like, they're huge.
Yep.
We had a jukebox in our high school cafeteria. And Centerfold, there were like a lot of hits off that record.
Yeah.
And man, that just if I hear Centerfold, it reminds me of eating lunch in the cafeteria. It played all the time.
I remember the video. I remember the video in the classroom, and I remember the girl dancing around,
in their lingerie.
No. It wasn't nearly as racy as the lyrics might imply.
They're dancing in the lingerie.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's.
I'm just
believe me, I remember that video.
Every frame of that. I just said Centerfold. They weren't naked,
No, they've got their little nighties on and stuff.
Yeah, they had their little.
PJs. They were very cute.
But it helped to be visual, not just for the sexy and flashy, but like we had mentioned, we talked last week about goth music, and you had. The Cure, and you had
Susie and the Banshees.
Susie and the Banshees, so visual, it's like the whole goth fashion aesthetic came from music videos and seeing her and Robert Smith.
Well, it kind of created a whole new art form for visual artists that were not going to be making traditional Hollywood movies, but they want to work with video, and it didn't necessarily have to make logical sense. It just needed to give you an emotion and make you feel something.
And a lot of those people went on. They started out making music videos and became directors. People like Spike Jonze.
Yeah.
He started out making, I think, Weezer videos.
Well, I went back and looked just for a reference point at the top songs of the years before.
Right.
MTV and then after MTV. And like in 1980, it was August 1st, 81. In 80 and up into 81, you had Diana Ross, you had Blondie, you had Queen. I think it was Under Pressure, maybe. I don't remember what it was. Was it Under Pressure? No. Something. Paul McCartney, Barbra Streisand. Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 was just months before MTV debuted. Afterward, you look at like 82, it was Hall & Oates. You know the video. Jay Giles Band, you know the video. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, I Love Rock and Roll, you know the video. The Human League, Don't You Want Me, you know that video.
They would have never gotten on the radio were it not for MTV.
Men at Work, Who Can It Be Now?
Same thing.
Same thing. Tony Basil, Mickey, I mean, everyone remembers that. And that was, the very year after MTV. That's how fast the impact was. And a lot of the bands, there were a couple of people, oddly enough, Olivia Newton-John and Kim Carnes, who both had, Olivia Newton-John had Physical, and that was an early one for MTV. And, so she was one who sort of made the transition, and then Kim Carnes with Betty Davis Eyes. Both of those songs were in the early days of MTV when they were repeating stuff over and over again. And both of those songs were number one, I think, for like 10 weeks each. Those were two of the longest running number one songs in history, and it's probably because they had videos. MTV is kind of limited on videos, so they just played these over and over. And both Olivia and Kim Carnes kind of dropped out of the scene. They made a short transition, and then they weren't really part of MTV. But you go on into 83, Eurythmics, The Police rebound. The Police, Culture Club, Cyndi Lauper, Duran Duran. I mean, you can't even talk about MTV without Duran Duran.
And they're totally a band that would not have gotten on the radio. They helped change. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, because you kind of dismiss them.
Right.
They were big. The videos were big. But that was, to me, that's the band that once they got on radio, that told me that it was suddenly MTV driving the car. No longer corporate radio.
For sure. And that same year, Prince. So Prince, that was when he started, and he had been around, but there wasn't as much there. But Prince became like an absolute icon for MTV. Then 84, Madonna finally gets to number one. You got Wham, Tears for Fears, Huey Lewis and the News, Whitney Houston, Dire Straits. This is when Dire Straits was able to jab out the piece, Money for Nothing.
Yeah, that was huge.
They jumped in there, and then you had, let's see, I'm running out here. Falco, Pet Shop Boys, Robert Palmer. I wanted to mention that because he was an attractive man, but his shtick was let's take beautiful women and pretend like they're my band, and people thought they were his band, which was like no, they're not his band. But this beautiful kind of look-alike styling of all these women, they were in Simply Irresistible, and what was the other one? I can't think of it. Your lights are
Addicted
on.
to Love.
Yeah, Addicted to Love.
Your will.
Addicted to Love.
Yeah, Addicted to Love.
Yes, Addicted to Love. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
You were so
I'm
busy
just busy singing.
He didn't get to the chorus.
Yeah.
Though.
You had Aha from Norway.
Oh,
Take on Me.
That animated.
Yeah, and that's another one that
That's
absolutely
an iconic video.
Yeah.
and it absolutely wouldn't have been on the radio were it not for MTV.
Right. And you had Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson. I don't know. Michael Jackson had been on the radio. I don't know if he would have been as big without MTV. But Janet Jackson probably was more of an MTV thing.
You're leaving somebody very, very, very important out.
Who's that?
Weird Al Yankovic.
Okay.
Because, and I will tell you, I mean, other than Duran Duran, I think Michael Jackson and Weird Al Yankovic's parodies of Michael Jackson were like two of the big drivers for MTV. When they, once their videos went on, it was like
Eat It.
Everybody was all about it.
And I mean, he parodied Madonna. He parodied everybody.
Yeah.
They just let him do it.
Well, and people loved it. Kurt Cobain loved it.
Right.
It was an honor.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that
except for Coolio. Coolio didn't think it was an honor at all.
No, that was that from the Gangster's Paradise.
Yeah.
I remember that.
He was pissed off.
Not so Coolio. Not so happy about that.
But he takes himself a little too seriously.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah.
I think he has admitted as much later on.
Yeah, because everybody, I think even more recent, things that Weird Al did, everybody's like, you want to do my song? Yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want, Yeah. So, but I think beyond just changing everything we listened to, which they kind of did, I mean, you would get like Hart would pop up with a song. You know, some people from the 70s, but they were really pushed back, you know, and it was more of the innovators, and it was more of just all these you know, British bands, Tom Petty,
huge MTV thing.
But you had things like Animotion, and you had, I mean, just like Men Without Hats and things like that. Just these bands that probably wouldn't have cut
Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Yeah, Dexy. Come on, Eileen.
And another thing that it did was it broke the gridlock of everybody just making albums.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the emphasis was on singles.
Again. That's a good point.
And that's kind of lasted.
Yeah.
You know, I think that
changed music forever.
I do too. But I think there's a movement coming back now for longer forms and people making albums.
I think there's some there, and this is the funny thing about this is I know that some of that is coming from Gen Z because Gen Z got all that access from YouTube of all this stuff from before MTV. So, like I've talked about Olivia Rodrigo before, she went back and did all of her history, and it's all right there. She could look at everything she wanted to. So she found all the 70s singer-songwriters, and she found, you know, on MTV, you didn't have that kind of flexibility to go back and find things. The best you could do is tape your videos, you know, when they showed the videos you wanted, and just have some crappy little, you know, VHS tape of you catching your own videos from MTV. Otherwise, it was a very passive experience, and all you could do is take what they dealt you.
Well, you know, we were talking earlier before we started the show. It's like I'm finding videos now that were made to be played on MTV that I never got to see.
Right.
And I can see them on YouTube.
Right.
Now. I saw a Judy Betts video not too awful long ago that I'd never seen before, didn't know it was ever made.
Right. Well, and there were a lot like that. And MTV would have like, you know, like alternative shows. They have like alternative hour.
120 minutes was great.
And I know they had MTV International where they would have other country VJs like talk about their country's top hits. And they were open to foreign. I mean, you got like Falco singing. He was from Austria, but he's singing in German. And you had Nena with 99 Luftballons and that.
Nina Hagen.
Well, Nina Hagen. I'm talking about just Nena, the 99 Luftballons.
Oh, yeah.
But Nina Hagen. I don't know. You had a lot of like foreign language stuff was tracking in. So culturally, I think it was a boon for women too, because women didn't have as much power then in the 70s or whatever, but they were open as artists and they were in something like the Go-Go's.
Yeah.
Wayne and I were talking about this beforehand. I don't know if they would have been a top 10 act before MTV.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think Our Lips of Steel might have been, but they became like part of the station. And then songs that might have been more B-side and not as big hits, I think they had lasting power because they were like a face of MTV. And they weren't really like selling it either. I mean, it was like Jane Wiedlin, I think we can all agree, was cute and everything. But the others were just, you know, they were nice. You know, there wasn't anything like, oh, these girls are so hot. You know, it wasn't like, you know, Robert Palmer's. No. They were just like, and they had, you know, they had their songs. And like I say, I know that more women came in. I know that you had more representation, you know, whereas in the 70s, you know, your Elton Johns and your Freddie Mercurys were in the closet. You had Boy George. You had the guy from Dead or Alive. You had Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Yeah. You know, the Frankie Goes to Hollywood was kind of an interesting thing because MTV was a little bit prudish. And if you remember, Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, led the campaign against for censorship of music and blaming. And it was kind of a surprise, you know, that this popular Democrat's wife was kind of leading a battle for censorship.
All because her daughter was listening to Prince's Darlin' Nikki.
Yeah.
That's what started the whole thing, the line masturbating with a magazine.
Yep. And there you go.
Sent her over the edge.
It's all Prince's fault. But MTV was, they were, you know, kind of leading the way culturally and everything. They eventually brought in a lot of Latin acts and everything. They were slow to adapt to broad, like acceptance or use of black artists, but they came around, and it was something that I thought was interesting because, like, there was almost like this unspoken or spoken rule through the years is that white people wouldn't listen to black singers.
And the person that went on MTV, went in and did an interview and took him to task was David Bowie.
Good.
David Bowie went on and just lambasted him on their, on MTV on an interview they did with him. Yeah. And he asked, why don't you play more black people?
Right. Because they didn't. I think Donna Summer was the only black woman who they played for the longest time. But they were still slow. Michael Jackson, you had to be extraordinary like Michael Jackson or Prince or whatever. Yep. But and there was like, and you have to keep in mind that after MTV came out, there were all these spinoffs, and you had VH1. Right. I think that was targeted toward boomers who found MTV to be a bit much.
And that's where you could find, Black Betty by Ram Jam.
right. But it was like stuff like Michael McDonald, and more adult
more Doobie Brothers,
or Doobie Brothers, and some of the older bands, and they older people were more tolerant of. Just performance videos, just seeing people on stage or whatever.
And then you got CMT. And they had...
CMT.
Country music television, when it started, it was all videos, just like MTV was.
Yep.
And they had the worst videos you have ever seen. The first country
videos... I never watched it. I knew what it was.
Oh, my God. The early country videos. And that was a little kind of golden age of country music right there in the 80s.
Right.
And nearly all the videos were terrible.
Right.
Once Randy Travis hit... It was like they started actually, putting some money into the videos.
Right.
Prior to that, and some of the other acts, I remember the Statler Brothers videos are the most god-awful things in the world.
Right. And you had BET. So you did have black videos. And something that MTV finally did, and I don't know why, because, we hear from like the 50s, 60s, whatever, there was black radio and then white radio. Right. And the white artists would have to do the black artist songs to bring it to the white crowd. And a lot of this was just conjecture and everything. I don't know how much of it was actually factual, but just like, white people, they're not going to listen to black people. And you heard that, and I had a friend who was a DJ back in the time in Knoxville, so it was Knoxville was a very white town for a southern city, and they weren't allowed, he said they weren't allowed to play songs like Pebbles, Mercedes Boy, and I think Diana Ross, Muscles or whatever, because a white audience wouldn't respond to that. So it was just this feeling that, we can't expect our white people to listen to these black artists. But then there was the advent of hip-hop, and MTV was kind of skirting around it for a while. And I have an anecdotal thing about this, but when they were coming to Daytona Beach, I lived there at the time, it was very white. They would bring a lot of white acts and everything like that. And they had launched this show called Yo MTV Raps in 88, like late 88. And it was successful, and it was working, but they kept for in 88 and 89, it was still predominantly, white acts. And the people of Daytona Beach were already, and bear in mind, the people in Daytona Beach, a lot of retirees, especially on the beach side, and the beach side is what would get clogged up with spring breakers. Right. So you got people who are really from even before boomers' time, like the greatest generation or whatever it's called. So World War II people are sitting there, and their beaches are being clogged up by these teenagers. And MTV... in the 80s, the spring breaks were so white. You would get all of these pictures of bands and, and just the beach crowd, and you would have to just strain to see a person of color anywhere, and most of the people on stage were. Well, in 90, MTV, they're like, you know what? People are embracing rap. And so they brought Yo MTV Raps to the beach in 90, and perfectly fine. And except the people who live there, like, okay, this is way too much now. We can't handle this. We can't, and that did get spring break drubbed out of Daytona Beach. But the important thing was they finally took a chance. And what we've discovered, and this is still today, you had the Beastie Boys, you had Eminem, but by and large, rap music, especially hip-hop music, has been the domain of people of color as performers. Right. And white people are absolutely fine with listening to that. The whole fear that people had that there's no way they would listen to that, it's like, they were wrong. And it's still, predominantly the artists are people of color. They've rap has taken more women rappers in, because women rappers used to be extremely rare too. And it was just like, black men were the rappers. But white kids just ate it up, and they still eat it up.
As has always been the case.
I mean, it's always been the case. And it just makes you wonder, were these people making the right calls back in the days? It's like, I don't think white people are,
of course they weren't
ready for that.
But that's the way it's been since the very beginning of,
Little Richard.
And even further back to blues and jazz and stuff. It's like, the black folks have been were the innovators.
Right.
And, not to interject just a little bit on the way, way, way back, Betty Boop cartoons. Some of those were basically music videos for Cab Calloway and Louis Armstrong and the Don Redman Orchestra and people like that. The jazz artists that white people, they didn't always get a look at them. They were cartoons.
Right.
So that was the situation back then, and it goes into the 40s and the 50s and everything else. It's like the powers that be didn't want the white folks to be listening to black folks. And
but that's also part of the history of, mostly in terms of rock and roll. But I mean, young generations are looking for ways to make their parents outraged. I mean, it's like they're just you're looking for something to get up people's nose.
But in every case, the innovators in music were the black artists.
Right.
So that's what the kids were picking up on. That's what the other artists were picking up on. The country musicians and the R&B musicians in the 40s and the 50s were all listening to each other and covering each other's songs.
Right. Well, I'm giving credit to MTV for finally taking chances that maybe other people were reluctant to take, and maybe they misjudged, just how. I don't know the term to use, but just how closed down white people were to other people. Maybe it would have been better way back if more people were willing to say, well, let's just try this and see what happens.
But one of the
I know that there were white people listening to those black radio stations, and it's like, well, why shouldn't they?
Of course. But one of the things that got me about MTV was, it's like everything in music. Once they figure out how much money can be made,
of course,
that's when suddenly the big
suddenly they're enlightened.
They're enlightened. It's like we can make all this money, and also we can push out all these videos. So suddenly MTV was all the big artists, and none of the little artists got in again.
Right.
Which was the thing that was most frustrating to me, because it was like, when it started, it was like, wow, I'm seeing all this different stuff I didn't know existed. Right. And then by the end of it, it was like, this is all the stuff I hear everywhere.
Right.
And it was disappointing.
And they changed the sound, and then they dominated what the sound would be. And now they're playing
exactly
what they've created. Yeah. They're the ones who are playing what they. And there were alternatives. I mean, I know everybody remembers Night Flight on the USA.
Oh yeah, Night Flight was so much fun,
and it was great. And they would play music that MTV wasn't playing or not playing much.
There's actually a streaming channel of Night Flight that shows all the old Night Flight stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I remember Night Flight used to show those censored videos. You know, it's like we were talking about Frankie Goes to Hollywood. They had one video where they were just in this big gay bar, and climbing all over each other. And that was in Britain. And then in America, what's his name? Is just the singer is just kind of standing in front of flashing lights, and there's nothing else about it, and you would see that. And MTV would censor a lot of videos. And they would go back and forth from being very progressive to being, real cautious. But again, MTV's influence, you had videos started showing up everywhere. You had video bars. There was one in Daytona that was popular, 701 South, that was leading the way there, and the Spring Breakers would come and dance there.
And video jukeboxes.
Which
harkens back to something that, I don't want to get back at too much of the old stuff, but there was a thing called Soundies in the 40s where they showed actual films that popped up, and they were basically early music videos of jazz and pop artists, and it was just like a jukebox. You'd put in your money, and all of a sudden you would be able to see a video of your favorite jazz artist.
Right. Well, I have to say, I don't know what those looked like, but a lot of the ones that I went back and found, like in the early 2000s from the 70s, they were pretty bad.
Yeah, well,
and I get it. I mean, they were amateurs, you know, and it's just like, oh, let's do something a little different. So it was different. Yeah. But, you know, like I watched Melanie's brand new key, and she's just like rolling around on roller skates.
So I've never
like
seen
trying
that
to
one.
get some. Yeah, it's like you'll go find one. It's like, okay, well that's better than nothing, but not by much, you know.
Yeah. Well, they would show. I mean, you talked about it being just in. I mean, the ones being in England, but the variety shows sometimes would show music videos, comedy shows. I remember seeing things on the Pat Paulson show. The Smothers Brothers, of course, showed Hey Jude when the Beatles released that, and that was just a performance video.
Did Sonny and Cher, didn't they have
Yep, Sonny and Cher had some stuff. And there were different, I mean, that was the thing is you could find, I mean, you would see that stuff show up.
Right.
And it would be this kind of little treat where they didn't have to produce anything. They just had something ready to go.
They get a 5-minute chunk of their show they don't have to produce. Yeah. And but the frustrating thing of that now, looking back on it, is it was just surprise, you know, here's something you want to see that you weren't expecting, you know, and you look at how people consume it now, and it's like, again, you watch what you want to watch, when you want to watch it, where you want to watch it.
Well, and I think that's a key development with YouTube over MTV, because
on
MTV, if you wanted to see the new XTC video, you had to wait until it played. Now you can just go get on demand anything you want.
You would see the Michael Jackson at the top of every hour. You know, you knew there were the few big ones that you would just see, and they had their countdowns. But yeah, they would the rarer ones. You just had to wait for it and hope for it. You know, and now it's like this is an advantage with the modern, you know, the Gen Z people. You know, and how it's working is that you've got so much consumer control.
But it's also a bad thing sometimes, just because it only. I mean, you're not going to see what you don't know that you like. Right. You know, that was the thing about MTV, is you'd be introduced to an artist that you'd never heard of before that you might like, but you didn't know.
Right. And in the early days, you didn't know most of them.
Right.
So there was more adventure in the early days because they were introducing a whole gang, an army of people. Right. You didn't know anything about them.
But now you have to go. Somebody has to tell you about something you didn't know about.
Yeah.
You have to read about it somewhere, or a friend has to tell you. And I mean, you can, like you said, you can find anything. I mean, my middle kid introduced me to Kimo Pojanen, who's like the Jimi Hendrix of the accordion.
Right.
And it's like, I would have never heard about that ever.
Jimi Hendrix of the accordion. Wayne Bledsoe, what do you say sometimes?
You need to. He's great. He's incredible.
I usually use the Yngwie Malmsteen of whatever.
Oh, okay. I know that. Well, one other thing. I mean, it was certainly appropriate, you know, that they started with the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star, and that they really were advocates of synth pop and, you know, more digital type sounds and stuff like that. But what happened to rock was like amazing, because it went from, you know, middle-aged guys standing on a stage not doing anything to hair bands. So all of a sudden,
hair bands and the college folks like REM.
Yeah, you had alt rock. Yeah. Sure, you had. Yeah, you did have alt rock. But I was just thinking of you know, like the harder rock. You know, and they were in their pink onesies and, you know, turquoise jumpsuits, and they all had makeup and hair and, you know, and all that stuff. So they were flashy and colorful because that's what sold. You know, pretty sold, dancing sold, colors, you know, that sold too. And that was a lot. That was a lot for people to take in, I think. And it was an advantage for a lot of people, and it was a distinct disadvantage for other bands. But when we got into the 90s, and then you had grunge, you know, and at this point, I think the bloom was coming off, you know, after a decade or so of MTV. Well, and go ahead.
But they started throwing in things too. I mean, you know, you had Beavis and Butthead, you know, commenting on this stuff.
You had Beavis and Butthead. You had they were doing alternate programming. They did Real World, so they had reality shows. They had Jackass, you know, and it's like, so they were finding other things, because I think the whole, and this is partly, I think a big part of this is that Gen X was getting older.
Right.
So Gen X didn't have the patience. You and me turning the MTV on and just letting it play. You didn't have the patience for that anymore. It's like you listen to it for a while. It's like, I don't want to hear, that song again or whatever. So we were pulling out of it. And then you had, like I said, the millennials weren't quite up to speed for it. Now, the younger Gen X's were still riding it. And they rode into grunge. And the grittier kind of rock sounds and everything, which weren't as visual necessarily.
They were a reaction against the visual.
Sure, they were a reaction against the visual.
I mean, Nirvana was just a reaction against corporate rock in general.
Right. And that was kind of butting heads with the success they were finding with rap. And, and it's like they didn't really flow together that well. So there were just a lot of things because cable was getting more and more competitive, and there were more and more cable channels, and MTV was finding success with non-music videos, and things just started like slowing down a little bit. And then the millennials were coming into the prime age, and the Gen X were kind of signing out, and checking out of MTV.
Well, and that's also right when the development and availability of the internet happened.
Right, exactly.
That's a huge factor.
Yeah, because in 2005, that's when MTV had scaled down to just music videos, and that's when YouTube debuted. Now, YouTube didn't just start with all the music videos. It took a while. It took a while for that to develop, and it was like 2010, MTV is like, we're just done with music videos altogether. This is when you have this limbo zone is when, like I said, the millennials were kind of like not feeling it. They weren't being catered to in any way, and everybody was just trying to adjust and find what the new normal was going to be.
But but when you're talking about that, and when the internet starts up, again, it's a little bit like the way MTV started. It's grassroots stuff.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, the first music videos that were on YouTube were homemade. People just, hanging out. But before you got to the established bands doing videos again.
Right. And you had MySpace. I forget what MySpace did. They had some kind of music.
It was basically you could just upload your music.
Like MySpace shares.
It wasn't videos.
Like
it was just audio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then you had, Facebook. There was a time when Facebook, you could load a video from YouTube onto your Facebook page, and people didn't have to, it would play on your page, so people could hit play, and people don't like being taken away from Facebook when they click on a link.
Right.
And so we were able to put, Facebook video or videos from any time, from before MTV and during MTV, and even as MTV was winding down. And like I say, the younger millennials, they were going more for the pop stuff, and then once they grew out of that, MTV was just kind of like, we can't do music videos anymore. But like I say, a few years transition, and you had, I don't think YouTube has had quite the impact on the kind of music we've listened to, but it's certainly been a huge consumer advantage to have all the options, to have all the control. You're not a passive listener.
And there's no gatekeeper like a record label or MTV or anything saying these are the videos we're going to allow.
Right.
They'll allow pretty much anything.
And at the same time that YouTube is coming up, that's the beginning of the iPod.
Yep.
Where people just they just collected the music they wanted to hear.
iTunes.
Right, and it was no particular... that's the thing that people realized, a lot of people anyway, is people aren't just sticking with one genre. They want to hear music from all sorts of things, and that's, if you looked at somebody's iPod, it was stuff from all over the place for the most part.
And you could do different lists, for whatever activity you had planned to listen to your playlist. Playlists are still a big thing. Spotify, everybody's got.
Well, and you got to also just thinking about the impact that MP3s had on music, and on record labels.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother.
That's
a whole nother episode.
Yeah. Well, and then you see for Gen Z and Gen Z artists, they were coming up with all these options, and they were coming up having the control. And I think the pandemic fostered this even more of I'm going to do my own music at my own home with my computer, and I'm going to do my own video. Justin Bieber was doing videos on YouTube. Yeah. He's going back a little further, but he was just singing cover songs on YouTube and posting his videos on YouTube.
Really?
That's how and then he blew up from that. So you had...
Well, and now every computer you buy has what used to be, tens of thousands of dollars worth of studio equipment you'd have to have.
Yeah.
Now every computer you buy has got a little recording studio in it.
Yeah, you get a deep discounted computer at Target or Walmart, and you can still go home and
play your ukulele and be
play your ukulele. That's what some people do. And they just, if they don't have their own songs, they'll do cover songs, or they'll mix it up and do cover songs and original songs.
And it's funny because there are things that have never been released in just like a regular audio format that I'll tape off YouTube,
right?
Because I want to hear it again when I'm not on my computer, and I just want to have it on there. Because there was like a group that was a fellow who was recording school kids in New York who did the best version of Lou Reed's song, I'll Be Your Mirror. Mm-hmm. It's like, I just had to record it, and then I played it on my radio show.
It's real
because you couldn't get it anywhere else.
Was that? What was the name of that?
It's PS 22. That was the school, and the guy just played guitar and had these. It wasn't the Langley Music Project.
That's what I'm thinking of.
But I don't think it was the same people.
Same idea.
Yeah, and you got all these things out there. It's like I'm back to recording stuff off off some format,
right?
Yeah, to listen.
Like
to
the old days with
your
tape recorder in front of the radio, or your VH player, and with hooked up to your TV. And
but now it's easier because you just got a program and you just hit record, and and then you can trim it down to be exactly what you want it to be.
And like Facebook is kind of a, it's definitely more of a baby boomer, Gen X medium, yeah. And then Instagram, which is more millennial, it's not as friendly when it comes to music. There's just something, the millennials got snake bit. They didn't get to experience music the way the people before them and after them have.
But Facebook didn't start out being so music friendly. I mean, that was one of the things I kind of mourned MySpace, was like, that was what I liked about it, is everybody posted their songs and I could click over and see what somebody had linked to or what somebody was doing. And when Facebook started, you couldn't do that.
Right.
Well, and then all of a sudden it incorporated everything.
Now, with Gen Z, it's TikTok.
Yeah.
And, and I was just showing you this guy who, it's so simple and DIY, and he's like a DJ down in Miami. His name's Abel Hart, and he just wrote his own song and recorded it on his own studio, and then he came up with his own little visual, like walking down the street routine for like 1 30-second pass of his song, and he does this same little thing, and then he would do remixes of it, post it on TikTok. Is just all about music, original music, and I don't know. Of course the problem is it's just such a glut of everything, and you have to get the lucky break. You have to get the share from somebody, right? An influencer or someone has to get you out there, but at least you don't have to suck up to some major record label and then hope that they're bribing radio stations.
Great equalizer.
It's a great equalizer, and if you believe in it, you can make it happen. The odds may be longer because there are more people like you who are doing it in your pastime, doing it when you've got time. I think, again, the pandemic probably helped because a lot of these people, they were in school, but they weren't around friends anymore, and they were at home. So they were learning how to do this stuff themselves, and it gave them time to explore, their inner thoughts and whatever.
And before we started, I was telling you about Mike Craver, who I think I recommended a while back. That's what he does now. He goes back and he's making videos of his old songs. And every few months there'll be this great new video where he's painted all the pictures, cut them out, and he does stop action. Right. And they're great. It's so much fun. And that's what he does.
Right. Well, there were a lot of you can remember all of those noteworthy something new, like the Aha video, like the Robert Palmer video. But then there were some big misfires, and I think like Milli Vanilli.
Oh my God!
For people who don't know, Milli Vanilli, it was two handsome guys that did these all big hits and everything, and they were great dancers and everything.
And won Best New Artist at the Grammys.
Won Best New Artist at the Grammys, and they were not the singers. They had used, and there have been times with older videos. I think maybe M's Pop Music or maybe Funky Town by Lip Sync or something like that, where they used kind of a model to do the singing for the woman's voice. It wasn't quite as a fraud as Milli Vanilli, because they presented Milli Vanilli as like these are the guys, and they went on tour. They went on tour and lip synced these songs, and that was a big black eye, and I think. My concern now is, and I don't know about these alphas, they're coming up behind because already the Gen Z people, the oldest ones of those, are starting to get to the settle down years. So, and the alphas, they're like coming up.
Is that the next group?
I think that's what they were. Yeah.
Does it just wrap around the alphabet?
And they're about to become teenagers now. So, and I don't know if this is going to be something that skips the generation. So, like the boomers and the millennials and the alphas would kind of like not be into music videos.
Well, and you're getting into all kinds of interesting technological questions too, because we got auto-tune.
Yeah.
Auto-tune can make a singer out of anybody.
Auto-tune.
And then you talk about AI that'll just generate a song to whatever parameter you want it to.
Yeah, you can take a popular singer and make them sing your song with AI.
Well, and we're talking about auto-tune. That auto-tune the news, those guys, they make great songs out of just people who were on the news and went viral, saying something crazy. The bed intruder guy.
Yeah.
That song, I love that song.
Yeah.
And I just watched one the other day about the little kid who loves corn. I don't know if you've seen that. If you look up Corn Boy Auto-Tune, and they've made this little song about this little boy who just loves corn.
Right.
You should be able to sing about that.
I know. It's so much fun. I mean, that's the democratization of technology. Is a lot of it has had very bad side effects.
Very bad, yeah. I mean, it's especially reprehensible, like with news and stuff. Everything.
Oh yeah, you can't trust anything
you're seeing now. It's like you really don't know what to trust anything at all. And then the text. AI is generating text based on whatever they find. Yeah. So a lot of Google searches will take you to an AI-created story that could be completely wrong. And one of the problems with AI is it can't read satire. It can't understand satire. Right. So it'll use satirical pieces. And now there are more satirical sites than ever before, too, making it worse. Yeah. So AI is out there scraping things off satire sites. And that's our news that we're getting.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And then, of course, anybody can manipulate, voices and images and everything. So it's not to be all doomsayer or anything, but it's pretty rough.
We talked about it in one of the earlier episodes. I mean, Randy Travis now has a hit song that he didn't sing.
Yep.
That's sampled from his voice.
Yeah.
And another singer. They created a new Randy Travis song.
Yeah.
Which. I mean,
there have been a lot of, and
is he making money off of it?
Yeah, he's making money off of it. So I mean,
there have been a lot of artists who weren't making money off. There have been a lot of artists who have like big current pop artists and everything whose voices suddenly they're on the radio. I don't know. It was something.
Well, Scarlett Johansson just sued.
Scarlett Johansson's voice. She was hearing her own voice in something. Yeah. It's like, that's my voice, and I never said this. You know, and that's happening to music artists too. Is that people are just creating songs, writing songs, and creating songs, and they're having these amazing like duets.
And they suck.
Yeah. It's just, It's like the thing about AI pictures is you can usually look and see the dead eyes or whatever.
And
or they always have like
fingers.
6 or 7 fingers. Or like their arms just kind of disappear into each other. But it's harder with the voices,
Well, but go ahead.
One of the things somebody posted is, why are we using AI to make art instead of using AI to do all our mundane things we can make art?
Right, exactly.
Because AI can do all that organizing and all the planning.
Let AI wash my dishes and do the laundry, and I'll go do art.
But I do think that real artists using AI will come up with good things.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they will.
And it's just, again, it's going to be a shaken out period of the people who just think, oh, well, I'll do this, and I'll think of this idea. And it's like, well, you can tell it just kind of sucks.
Yeah, and real artists, they're still, I think Lady Gaga may be the Michael Jackson of today as far as like making the videos, because she's put and she's an artist, so if you're a musician who also has like a visual quality or an artistic quality or whatever, you're going to make good videos.
Right.
She did a bunch of Bad Romance, Born This Way, Telephone. She did a great one for a song called 911. That's probably her best video, and it's about her addiction to anti-anxiety drugs. But the video is just, it's bizarre at first, because of the imagery that you're seeing and some repetitive motions and some people are acting kind of strange. And then when it flips up to the end, it's just great. It's just like you understand everything that happened in the video at the end of it.
What song is this for?
911. Well, it's about, my biggest enemy is me, Papa 911. It's about our 911 pills. And you don't know what's going on, and then it's just like odd things. It's a cool song too, but it has such a great ending. It's like, oh my God, I get all of it now, And so that there are still artists like her.
Well, but before we leave this and do our recommendations, I think each one of us, all three of us, should recommend a video to somebody that they may not have seen.
Okay, well, I'm going to recommend Lady Gaga.
You just recommend it.
Yeah, because it wasn't a giant hit, so I'm saying a lot of people haven't seen that one.
All right. Well, I'm going to recommend Andy D's Angels on the Dance Floor. Andy D is this crazy guy out of Indianapolis. I met him when I was on tour with Lil Iffy. He opened some shows, and he's just wonderfully weird. Mullet, fanny pack, kind of pudgy guy.
Oh, boy.
Singing this dance rap music. And Angels on the Dance Floor is him walking down the street, encountering crazier characters along the way. And it's loads of fun. It's totally DIY. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like, it's what music videos are all about.
Okay.
Just having fun. John?
I don't have any music videos that I can recommend.
Oh, come on, John. I mean, I know you're recording on
Well, I'll tell you one. Go on YouTube and just look up. There's a whole stream of videos from They Might Be Giants.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them are just, some of those videos are amazing.
Oh, yeah. They're great.
I've got something else I'll throw out there. Malcolm McLaren.
Yeah.
He did a lot of cool videos, and there's one that people around here might especially be interested in. It's called Duck for the Oyster. Now, this was back when he did Buffalo Gals.
I remember that one.
And Buffalo Gals and Duck for the Oyster have the same kind of vibe. There's a very urban feel for Buffalo Gals.
Right.
And Duck for the Oyster is like a square dance song. He goes to Tennessee. I'm sure it's Tennessee, rural Tennessee, and it's like a square dance song. And he's got these modern dancers who are dancing to it. And I've watched it so many times, and I think, I wonder if this is how the rest of the world sees Appalachia. Because it's so bizarre, because it cuts back and forth between country people. There's an old guy talking at the beginning. Old country, you would have heard him, some small town around here.
Right.
And then there's some woman running around with a duck and all that. But then there are these modern dancers that are doing it. There's something just real eerie about it, too. So and he was like a real video innovator anyway.
Yeah.
But
What's it called again?
Duck for the Oyster.
Okay.
Malcolm McLaren.
Yeah, I'm going to look for that one.
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to say that as proof that videos are still viable and still popular, these YouTube videos, some of them have billions of views. Billions of views. It used to be a big deal to hit 1 million, and then and I think that Despacito by Luis Fonsi, that's the most watched video of all time. That had Daddy Yankee on it. It's got over 7 billion views.
Wow.
Good grief.
And Ed Sheeran, of all things, Shape of You by Ed Sheeran, 5 billion views.
Wow.
There's Wiz Khalifa, Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars, the Uptown Funk, Psy, the gangsta, Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. That was in Korean, and that's had over 3 billion. Taylor Swift, of course, she's going to show up. Shake It Off and Blank Space, both of those have over 3 billion each.
Yeah.
So still an audience. I think there's a little bit of slide. We're coming to another kind of limbo time right now, and we'll see what the younger Gen Z and maybe those pesky alphas that we don't know much about yet. We'll see what they come up with.
Yeah. Cool. Well, are we ready to do our recommendations?
I think, we could talk for 20 episodes on music videos, so let's just drop it.
All right. Well, I want to start with a music recommendation because we've talked about videos and we haven't talked about this guy, Mike Nesmith, who actually came up with the idea of MTV.
Right.
And sold it. He had a thing called Elephant Parts that had music videos and little skits and things in it. But, of course, he was one of the Monkees. And when the Monkees disbanded, he started making kind of country rock. He was in the same boat as the Byrds when the Byrds kind of did their country stuff, and the Flying Burrito Brothers. things like that. His albums are really good and really good country. What are you laughing about? He's over here laughing at me.
I was going to say, okay, boomer.
Thanks a lot.
No, we need you. We desperately need you. I would be just like not knowing what the hell I'm talking about most of the time if you didn't balance me out.
But one of the first music videos that was played on MTV was a song called "Cruisin'," which is off his album "Riders on the Infinite Dogma," I think. But the album I would recommend to get introduced to Mike Nesmith's music is the Hits Just Keep On Coming, which it was named because his record company RCA was trying to get him to create hits, and he never did. He had one hit as a solo artist with the song Joanne.
I like that.
And anyway, his stuff is great, and he did a lot of good stuff. But he came up with the idea for MTV.
Okay.
And his mom invented liquid
paper, whiteout, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll pop in here. I've saved this one, and this has I'm looking for a little local reference, like Doug for the Oyster. And this is Adam and the Ants.
Yeah.
Also Adam Ant, when Adam and the Ants broke up.
Right.
That was a good transition to music videos. He was so MTV because the music, the structure of his songs was really weird, and you didn't realize it till you would sit and listen and break it down. A lot of humor, a lot of odd lyricism. There's like a weird rhythmic kind of anchor to his songs that kind of dominated the guitars. But they were never like dance songs, and they would have like all kinds of like horns and all of that. And his dress, his costumes, I just hit the mic, so I don't know what that just did. Sorry. That was Adam and the Ants, blame them. But anyway, and he had the songs. With Adam and the Ants, it was Ant Music, Stand and Deliver. Those were probably the two biggest. And then as a soloist, when that band kind of fractured, he had Goody Two Shoes, which is probably his biggest hit. Yeah. And then Strip, which was like a really fun one. But if you just listen to those songs now, you could tell there was like an innovation and just like a new way of kind of putting songs together. And the local tie, who knew there would be a local? It's this British guy, very eccentric. But he married a woman in Dayton, Tennessee, here in East Tennessee. Yeah. And he moved here, or he was splitting his time between East Tennessee and London for years. Yeah. I think they divorced. I don't know if he spends any time here anymore, but I always think about what was it like to run into Adam Ant at the Dollar General in Dayton, Tennessee. And if he would be wearing all the weird, makeup and feathers and stuff.
I doubt he was wearing the makeup and feathers.
And he had an interesting story. He's not dead, but he dated Jamie Lee Curtis. He dated a lot of like hot women. He was like a model type guy himself, but he did have that local tie.
Yeah, John, how about you?
I have multiple musical, so I'll keep them short. Okay. It was a big week this week. There were a lot of new releases that are very notable. There's a new Richard Thompson album called Ship to Shore. Mm-hmm. Very good. He's an amazing guitar player, amazing songwriter. It's very enjoyable. The next one is a band called Idaho, and they put out several albums in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they haven't put out an album in a while, but it just came out earlier this week, and it's called Lapse.
Okay.
And it's real.
Keep in mind, this might be 3 months before people hear this.
Oh, yeah, okay. So
at any rate, just a few months ago, all these albums came out.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's real relaxing, real atmospheric. It's guitar-based music, electric guitar, drums, rock band instrumentation, but it's real. It draws you in, and I really like it a lot. This morning I listened to a new album by Rouge Aftab, who she played at Big Ears.
I love her.
And her new one, it's called Night Rain, and it's just the most wonderful, relaxing, and yet she sings with this Arabic notations, and it's good. And another real surprising one, just released like 3 days ago, is the newest album by Crowded House. It's called Gravity Stairs. And Neil Finn.
MTV band,
yeah, they were an MTV band, and he's joined by the original bass player from Crowded House and his two sons, Liam and I'll find his name. Anyway,
Scott.
The other one,
Liam and Elroy. And also the keyboard.
He's a Jetson.
Keyboard player and producer Mitchell Froome, who's produced all kinds of great stuff.
I've seen that name.
He was married to Suzanne Vega and produced her 99.9 Fahrenheit Degrees, which is a great record. Produced Los Lobos, Kiko. He's produced
Richard Thompson.
Loudon
Wainwright.
Yep. So anyway, it's a slow grower,
right.
But I think that's a good sign, because if I love something just immediately, it means I'm not going to like them for very
like
long.
it next week.
If it takes me 3 or 4 listens to kind of get what they're doing, then I know I'm going to like it for a long time. And I'm real impressed with the Crowded House album.
Well, go ahead.
You got a movie?
I got a movie.
Okay.
Okay, my movie this week is Edge of 17, which came out in 2016.
Okay.
Stars Haley Steinfeld and Woody Harrelson.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was totally overlooked. It's one of the best coming-of-age movies that I've ever seen. And Woody Harrelson is really funny. Haley Steinfeld is really funny.
She's very talented.
She was the girl that was in True Grit, and of course she does music stuff too. But this movie is one of the best representations of siblings that I've ever seen.
Okay.
And it's the dialogue and the interaction between the characters is very believable, and I bought into it. I've watched it like 3 times, and it's just great. I mean, you love her, and you want to kind of shake her the whole time because she's being a stupid teenager.
Right.
That's very precocious, and she's very smart, very full of herself.
Okay.
But it's terrific. And
okay.
I think it's I think the same person who directed that may have directed it's Hi God, It's Me, Margaret.
Oh, okay.
So
that one kind of got overlooked to some degree.
Yeah, another one which was
great.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's a really important movie.
Yeah.
But I think Edge of 17 is actually better, and I think that I just think it's a terrific film that got overlooked.
All right. I'll get you. Want me to go? You got one?
I just have a TV show I've been enjoying.
Okay.
Everybody's probably heard it or seen it, but it's Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, yeah.
It's Steve Martin and Martin Short and
Selena Gomez.
Yes.
And
she is amazing.
She is
They're all
awesome.
I need to watch
that. I mean, I love Steve Martin and Martin Short together. They're just so natural together. And when I first saw that she was going to be on, I was like, well, I don't know how that's going to work. But she's perfect balance.
She plays off of them. Great. She's like, you old guys don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
But she's really good.
I recommend that too. I'll double that. My movie, and again, this is the how we saw it to play off our how we heard. I always say that because I thought that was clever, but maybe it's not. Anyway, so I'm going to go with another local tie here, and you all may have seen it. It came out last year, like last February, kind of a dead time, but it's Cocaine Bear.
Oh, I still haven't seen that.
You still haven't seen it?
Still
okay, Cocaine Bear is directed by Elizabeth Banks, and it's based on a story that had a strong Knoxville connection.
Let's say inspired by a story.
It's inspired, yeah. So, at the News Sentinel, one of the older editors had written a story about it years ago, and then Travis, one of the younger writers, was updating the story, and we were talking about it, and then a couple of years later, this movie came out. It was like, wow. Not so much the story. I got to tell the story real quick. The real story. What happened was there were these 2 guys who were supposed to be bodyguards or whatever. Or at least that's what one of them thought. But they were actually running drugs from Miami up to Lexington, Kentucky. I think that was their destination. And the one that knew they were running drugs started getting paranoid when they were flying, a little single, just 2 of them in a plane.
Right.
And he started getting paranoid, and the other guy was getting already paranoid because he's like, oh, my God, we just loaded this plane with cocaine, So they're flying over Georgia, and the paranoid one is, like, convinced that the feds are after them, tracking them and everything. So in North Georgia, they start dumping out the cocaine of the plane. And I don't remember how many years ago. It was, like, maybe 90s. But so they're dumping the cocaine out, and then that's still not good enough. They're so paranoid that they're going to be, met at the airport at this plane when it lands in Kentucky. So they're over Tennessee at this point, and they both jump from the plane in parachutes. And the paranoid guy dies in South Knoxville. He crashed. He died in South Knoxville, and the other guy lived. He also his chute took him down somewhere in Tennessee.
We're currently in South Knoxville, by the way.
The Arbor, our studio, is in the lovely rolling hills, forested hills of South Knoxville. And but anyway, then the plane had nobody on it, so it just veered off and crashed in North Carolina. So you had, and then the problem with the cocaine in Georgia is that a bear got a hold of it and just binged on cocaine and died. So you had to, and they stuffed it, and they took it to, I think, to Kentucky, this stuffed bear that died of cocaine overdose because of this. So you had cocaine falling out of the plane in Georgia. You had 2 men falling out of the sky in Knoxville. Then you had a plane falling out of the sky in North Carolina. Well, Elizabeth Banks is just concerned about the bear on cocaine. And that's fine. That's fine. The other stuff would have been a whole different movie. So it's about these people in North Georgia. They run a park. They're real, they're real Southern. They're real mountain Southern, and there's just a bear there it doesn't die. It doesn't die from, coke overdose right away. It's just getting coke and attacking people, and it's really violent and it's funny. It's kind of uneven, but it's just a big dumb comedy horror film, and it's kind of gory, and just to have this bear, coked out bear terrorizing people.
And it's got a great cast. I've been wanting to see it.
It has a great cast, yeah.
And Elizabeth Banks has got a great sense of humor.
Yeah, she does. You can tell that. You see that in every part of it. Yeah. So it's definitely worth it. Also made me think, and maybe I don't want to give away any thoughts I've had, but we had the bear that died of a meth overdose in the Smokies. I think it had eaten some guy who died of a meth overdose, and then the bear died of a meth overdose. And I don't know why we can't have a meth bear, and just put a different spin
I think acid bear would be interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, there's somebody in Knoxville who made a meth gator movie. So I mean,
well, yeah. Let's just put.
I think meth gator is a great.
Let's put all of wildlife on drugs and see what happens. I want like the
Adderall skunks.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of like raccoons on Molly or something like that. That might be.
That's a good band name.
Oh, yeah.
Raccoons on Molly.
That is a good band name. I like that.
All right. Well, I think we're done. We could have done a whole lot with music videos, but I hope we gave a little insight that maybe people hadn't thought about. They can understand why music videos were or were not important to them just based on their ages.
Yeah.
It was a fun topic, and we'll have another fun topic. And we will come back at some point, and we'll be here for you.
And thanks for listening.
Thank you. You've been listening to How We Heard It with Chuck Campbell and Wayne Bledsoe, a podcast about music, art, culture, movies, whatever they want to talk about. How We Heard It was recorded in Knoxville, Tennessee at the Arbor Studio by John Baker. If you believe you've been abducted by aliens during listening to this podcast, we take no responsibility for that. How We Heard It is a Tear Owl production, and if you'd like to reach out to Chuck or Wayne, send an email to howweheardit@gmail.com. Come on back next week and we'll have another show for you.